and welcome to the Fiber Broadband Association's Five for Breakfast. We're now in our 16th episode of 2025. But before we kick off, I'd like to thank Wesco, the platinum sponsor of Five for Breakfast. Last week, the Fiber Broadband Association hosted our third annual Fiber Day on the Hill in the Rayburn building. And we want to thank our honorary co-chairs, Representative Dr. John Joyce from Pennsylvania, Vice Chair of House Energy and Commerce Committee, also Representative Doris Mansui from California, the ranking member of the House Communications Technology Subcommittee, and Senator Jackie Rosen from Nevada, the member of the Senate Commerce Committee. During our Fiber Broadband Association's Fiber Day in the Hill last week, the Senate Commerce Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation convened a hearing to consider the nomination of Ariel Roth to be the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Communications and Information, so basically to run NTIA, and also the examination and nomination of Olivia Trusty to be a member of the FCC. And so Ariel Roth passed out of committee on a vote of 16 to 12, and Olivia Trusty will be voted on a later date. So basically, for Ms. Roth, now she just has to go to the full Senate for a hearing, and we figure that's going to take a little bit of time, but we look forward to her joining NTIA as the leader. In Congress, the House passed the budget resolution setting the framework for the budget reconciliation bill and completing a pivotal step for the budget reconciliation process to move forward. Now the House and Senate are in recess for the next 2 weeks, and so they'll be back in DC on April 28th. As the Fiber Broadband Association works its way around North America, so far our regional Fiber Connect workshops in San Antonio and Philly have been sold out. And our annual conference, Fiber Connect 2025 in Nashville, June 1st through 4th, is on track to set a new attendance record. Last year, we had about 5,000 people there, some of our closest and best friends, and we expect to have a little more than that this year. After Fiber Connect in Nashville, we'll be in Anchorage in July, looking forward to that. Then in Toronto in August, Spokane in September, Scottsdale in October, Kansas City in November, and then we'll finish the year with our premier member meeting in Palm Springs, which is always a great spot, and that'll be on December 8th and 9th. That brings us today's Five for Breakfast session. Our guest today is Brian Worthen, the CEO of Visionary Broadband, to discuss Powering Progress, a game-changing expansion for Cañon City's growth and success. But before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to introduce David Norris from their team, who's going to walk us through some housekeeping items.
Thank you very much, Gary, and good morning to everybody who's joined us today. Appreciate it. Before I go over a few logistics, we'd like to once again thank Wesco, our platinum sponsor of Fiber for Breakfast. As participants today, you are in listen-only mode. However, we do wish to hear from you, and you can ask your questions by using the question box, which is located in the lower left-hand side of the screen, and we will have a Q&A session with our guest at the end of today's presentation. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within 24 to 48 hours on the FBA website, and you can find that on the Events tab under the Fiber for Breakfast drop-down option. Finally, at the conclusion of today's session, you'll be prompted to complete a brief feedback survey. We appreciate you taking a moment to do so. We appreciate your input. With that, I'll pass things back over to Gary to get us started. Gary?
Thanks, David. Good morning. I'm Gary Bolton, the President and CEO of the Fiber Broadband Association. Last week on Five for Breakfast, our guest was Brian Mitchell, the Broadband Director for the state of Nevada, and discussed unlocking Nevada's digital future, the High-Speed Nevada Initiative. So Nevada submitted its final BEAD proposal, NTI, earlier this year and expects to break ground with BEAD projects early this summer. So if you missed that, it was a great session with Brian, so you can go to our website to watch the replay. Today on Five for Breakfast, our guest is Brian Worthen, the CEO of Visionary Broadband, to discuss Powering Progress, a game-changing expansion for Cañon City's growth and success. Brian joined Visionary in 2001, so that's quite a long time, 24 years. Congratulations, Brian. And his work to develop the company's broadband portfolio in Colorado, Montana, and Wyoming. Seeing an opportunity in 2005, Brian and his management team formed Mammoth Networks to wholesale telecommunication services to ISPs and regional carriers. Mammoth quickly evolved into an aggregator of disparate technologies and services into a single telecom platform. Visionary has continued to develop retail services and operate fiber and microwave broadband plants in the most rural areas of the Rockies. Brian's company offers retail broadband in 126 cities, towns, and unincorporated places and populated places. The company has invested significantly in fiber installation and operations since 2020, using a combination of grants and traditional borrowing. Visionary has a staff of 220 employees working from different multiple offices and dispatch locations. Brian serves on the board of Encompass, a Washington, D.C. based association for telecommunications competitive policy, and he graduated from the University of Wyoming with a degree in small business management and an emphasis on finance. So with all that, welcome, Brian. And for our audience, please type in your questions as we go, and we'll work those in discussion. So I want to kick that off. So Brian, tell us a little about what you're doing and where you're operating.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me, Gary. What you see here on this slide is a map of our coverage area. This area in pink is everywhere we have fiber. We've taken a microwave background or a wireless background with fixed wireless that we've developed since 2001 and use that as the basis for our fiber expansion. And so it's most of our fiber that we've built in this Rocky Mountain region is actually based on having an existing customer base in these markets. And so we're simply migrating those customers from a microwave product to a fiber product. Cañon City's different in that regard because we did not have a microwave platform in that community previously. And so that's an exciting opportunity for us to go into a new market and establish our brand there.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about Cañon City. So, or maybe start with kind of your strategy, because I mean, you're not picking the easy places, right? You guys are going to the most rural, hard to reach, low density areas. So congratulations on taking the hardest spots to connect. So tell us about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're building fiber right now in Guernsey, Wyoming, and there are MDUs larger than some of these towns we're in, like Guernsey. The other thing that's interesting about our markets is they're either in the mountains or they're just really far apart. And so that adds an interesting dynamic because we have to buy backhaul into those markets or build our own backhaul into those markets. And when I talk to my peers and they talk about building in places like Indiana, Ohio, Missouri, places like that, I often find that these communities are just feet apart. They border each other. And out here, communities can be 40, 70 miles apart. And so that makes it a little different. Even when you're thinking about just simple things like troubleshooting, dispatching an installer to a customer location just to troubleshoot could take hours. It's not just a matter of crossing town. And so we grew up in the Rockies. We're just a byproduct of where we started this business. And we figured out a way to be successful in this really low density area. Wyoming, for instance, has 6 people per square mile, really the closest thing to the Alaskan lack of density there is. Montana is similar, Western Colorado is similar. And so it's an interesting formula that we've come up with where we can make something work just for 500 homes in one community or 2,000 homes in another. And it's by nature, it's rocky, right? That's why they call it the Rocky Mountains. So you've got rock adder for construction and those kind of challenges too.
Yeah, great question came in from one of our audience members on, with the existence base to market, what is the average revenue per user lift when you move from a microwave to a fiber to the home product? In particular, have you seen anything longer than last miles?
What's interesting about having an existing customer base in many of these markets is we move the customer over to a fiber product and they get faster speed at the same price. And so that's what we're always shooting for. The rural nature of this is we try to roll out a product that's $70, $80. And when somebody's moving from a fixed wireless product to a fiber product, they're moving from a 100 meg product to a gig product. And so that's actually a pretty easy transition for the customer and for us.
So let's talk about Cañon City. So Cañon City, for those who have never been there, it's kind of out. If I look at Colorado Springs and Pueblo, and then it's kind of off the west if you created a triangle. So it's not exactly in the main flow of anything. And they have a correctional institution, they have an amazing expansion bridge, so a little bit of tourism. But I mean, so what makes Cañon City special, and what are you guys doing there?
What's interesting about Cañon City is their municipal leadership makes them special. Their city administrator, their IT manager, their economic development leader, they're great people. And when we started talking to them, they said, we'd like to connect our community locations, which can be anything from a city hall to a water tank or some sort of processing facility. And so they approached us about building a fiber network, but they knew they didn't want to own it. And so it was an easy relationship to establish and build on, because we like that model. We've been participants in other municipal or community networks, and what's difficult about that is there's not a clear line of delineation on who owns what, who owns the lateral, who owns the last 500 feet. In this case, it was the community support that made this successful, and it was just an easy negotiation and agreement to set up. And we set this up as a simple IRU, and so Visionary maintains the responsibility of maintaining that, moving that for restructuring of city streets and roads. I'm getting some background noise. So Visionary has repair obligations and whatnot. And so the way this is set up was really our ideal situation. And the city administrator, Ryan, Elijah, Rick, economic development, they're just really, really great people. And they understand the need to build a network that then benefits their business, the businesses in their community, and makes them an attractive location for people to relocate, which obviously is a big deal since 2020. People could work from anywhere.
So how many subscribers are you serving there, and what's like the density, subscribers, the density like per mile?
So I don't have that information at my fingertips. What we're doing is we're actually building the trunk line first, and not building out fiber passings in order to fulfill that agreement and that obligation with the city to connect their locations. But what's interesting about that is we're building the trunk line past very serviceable neighborhoods and business districts. And so when that is complete, we'll simply shift that over into building distribution out to those neighborhoods and business districts.
Service that you'll be providing?
The typical service we provide is an XGS PON. So it's a symmetric service that the base product is a gig by gig. We have a 5 gig by 5 gig, a 2.5 gig symmetric. And then for businesses, obviously we can sell on an ICB basis or individual case basis, where if somebody has a special need, like a 10 gig symmetric or something like that, we can definitely support that, and dual routes in and out of the community. So we're big fans of building redundancy. We like to sleep at night. We like our customers to sleep at night. And so having second route is always important to us. So we're prepared to, not only in the West, there's just not enough population to be a specialist, right? There's E-rate providers, there's people that specialize in resi, there's people that specialize in business. Out here, we have to take all business. And as a result, we've developed a platform where we have a really strong business arm. We have an engineering team that focuses on business. And so that's what makes us a good fit for Cañon City. And I think they recognize that.
What do people use today before you have fiber there? And what are you charging for your base gig by gig service?
The base gig by gig is a $60 product. The folks in Cañon City now have access to a DSL product and to a cable product. So they're copper-based products. And that's another thing that Cañon City was really keen on, is developing a future-proof platform in fiber. As you know, and your members know, the only thing on the horizon out there that's the best is fiber. You can augment that with extensions that are wireless, which, because we have that background and that knowledge, we're very skilled at that. But there's nothing else on the horizon that's going to replace fiber. And so that's what Cañon City was really looking for, is someone to come in and build more of a future-proof network that was not copper-based DSL or copper-based coax.
Tell us about the advantages. You have a really tight relationship with the municipality, and so how is that accelerating your deployment?
Obviously, support of the municipality is a huge deal. We're in a number of communities. We're in over 100 communities. And it's difficult to maintain all those relationships when you've got as many projects as we do simultaneously going on. And so it's always the relationship building within a community is just a continual process. And I'd love to be spending time in every community more. What's interesting about Cañon City is they've just been they've embraced us. They've been supportive, and it just makes us successful. If there's not support at the community level, the municipal level, it just makes it a little harder. There are situations where we've gone into municipality and it's taken us a year to get a right-of-way agreement because they actually haven't worked a right-of-way agreement or a franchise agreement since the 1950s or 1960s. So there's nobody on council, there's nobody on the town board that understands a franchise. In fact, some of these communities can't even find the franchise agreement for the phone company. And in other communities, we've actually found that they never had a franchise agreement or a right-of-way agreement with the phone company. They just, by nature of being there so long, they built over the years just based on that relationship alone. And so, as a new provider, when you come in, support from the community is huge, and that's what made Cañon City work.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about, I was telling you the other day about how, I live on Tybee Island, and Live Oak Fiber is coming in here, and I'm just so impressed with the care their crew takes in being so careful of when they cut a pit, that they put a tarp out and put all the earth on a tarp, and then very careful on the way that they directionally bore and then replace everything like it's back perfect. And give us your experience on these deployment techniques.
Yeah, that's an interesting technique because it's the lowest impact. And what we found is the lowest impact method of construction has a higher take rate. And so what you describe is what we refer to as missiling, or using a pneumatic missile to go from 40 feet from hole to hole. It's got the least amount of impact. Like you say, the dirt is placed on a tarp at the end of that job. They simply put the dirt back in the hole. They take this bit of turf and put it back on, and then water it. And within a few months, you can't even tell where that was done. When you bore in a community or a subdivision, you have larger equipment. And what's interesting is people have taken very good care of their yards, and they want to see a fiber provider do the same thing. And the use of the right of way is interesting because a homeowner sometimes has even planted flowers or maintained that grass or that flower bed, or some sort of landscaping in that right of way, and then they get frustrated when you've got a big drill out there, like mucking up that landscaping. So the goal of any fiber provider, or our goal, is to simply construct with the least amount of impact as possible. And it's difficult too, because as everyone knows it's a speed to market issue right now. When you've got simultaneous projects going on, you've got to bring in contractors from out of state, out of town. It would be ideal if there were multiple contractor choices for construction in a community that's familiar with the community, familiar with the gas provider, the electrical provider, and whatnot. But that's not always the case. And so you've got to, as a fiber provider, we have to balance that out and really just try to minimize the impact of construction to the homeowner or to the business.
So obviously on an island here, it's sand, and so pretty easy to be able to deploy underground in sand. Obviously, Colorado is a little bit different. Can you talk about the topology and kind of the terrain that you're trying to work in?
Yeah, that's that's, like I said earlier, that's a byproduct of where we started a business and grew up and grew into this business. The example I have is Lake City, Colorado. We built a fiber network down there last year and the year before. We needed to get fiber to a substation in partnership with the electrical utility. And there was two choices. We could take the long route, which is on this windy dirt road, or we could go up the side of a pretty steep hill that had switchbacks. And so we decided to go the long route, which of course, when you're engineering and estimating, you always want to take the shortest path. But in this case, we had to take the long route because of topography. And so that's a challenge. Rock is a challenge, as I've talked about previously. I'm actually really jealous of some of my peers when we go to places like Louisiana and see how many feet they can get done in a day, and see how easy their drills go through the soil there. And so, when you're talking about sandy soil on an island, it's so tempting to look over the fence and see those opportunities. But we also are keen on building where we know, and this is what we know.
So now, I mean, obviously microwave is kind of your background, and given your terrain, you must still have that part of your plan.
Yeah, what's interesting about this is our plan was always to build a fiber network and then roll the customers from microwave to fiber. And so we from 2001 to 2022, we built 600 and some towers, erected wireless on anything from a traditional tower, our own tower. We leased towers, we put them on water tanks, we put them on taller silos and whatnot. And so we spent over 20 years building a wireless network and a wireless customer base with the intent of rolling that customer to a fiber product. What's interesting about 2020 to the CPF projects is they were fiber only or fiber first. And so it encouraged us to start building more of our own fiber network faster. And we'd never really touched grants until 2020, until the CARES grants came out. And we saw an opportunity to be the local guys that understand the local topography and the local market to build locally. And so we really took that on as responsibility, but it really springboarded our fiber construction and accelerated our plans. But you look forward to BEAD. BEAD's going to be a hybrid solution. It's going to include fiber, fixed wireless. It's going to eventually include satellite. And so having that knowledge of microwave and fiber, I think, is going to be crucial for us on a go-forward basis. You cannot justify building fiber to the last 4 houses on a county road. And so there's always going to be a microwave component in our eyes.
One of the our audience questions is, how did aerial opportunities factor into your expansion in Carson City or Cañon City? And have you run into permitting, loading, or attachment challenges?
The biggest detriment to fiber construction is permitting and locates. Early on, we had picked a number of markets where aerial would be advantageous, and in each one of those situations, we've gone underground for speed. What's interesting is we've actually run into situations where the utility is understaffed. The engineering review for pole attach, you have to be patient with that. And when you're trying to be first to market and build out an entire community, we found that it's difficult to wait, and it's difficult to justify that wait. And it's easier to actually take the known cost of underground construction. And so there's a few markets like Cañon City where we had planned to go aerial, and we're shifting to underground for that reason.
So I did see a press release this morning that that you guys are rebranding one of your acquisitions in rural Colorado. Tell us a little bit about kind of what your model is and about some of this rebranding.
Yeah, the Aristata acquisition in Salida, Buena Vista, and Poncha Springs occurred last year, and we took our time to build up the network, spend time augmenting the network, improving it before we put our name on it. The network reliability for us is a big focus. We don't want to just slap our name on anything. And so even in this acquisition, we wanted to make sure to do it right, build the right amount of backhaul, build the right amount of redundancy, and then rebrand. So we took a year and we're very purposeful about putting our name on that product once we completed that. So we just rebranded this month in that area, which is like a South Central Colorado.
So you also recently announced you hit a significant milestone in rural connectivity. Can you share us what that achievement was?
Yeah, we really started building Resi fiber in 2022, and so that's not too long ago. Before that, we were reselling other networks like the phone company, the cable company, long haul and middle mile through other entities. And so we use that resell model in a wireless platform to really develop a broadband product. And then after the CARES projects we completed in 2020, we started developing plans for residential fiber. This year, we just crossed over 10,000 actual fiber subs, which is huge for us because we're making a transition from a wireless company that did not own our own fiber network to actually owning our own fiber network. And that's a combination of market pressures and just the knowledge that fiber is going to be the product for the future. So it's a big milestone for us. I'm sure comparatively, there's other people that have accomplished much more. The transition from having, in 2017, having 3 service vehicles to now where we have nearly 100. It's a big transition for us, and we're really proud of what we've accomplished. I'm proud of my team for what they've done.
Well, congratulations, Brian. And, let us know what, as you move forward, it's just amazing of the work that you've been able to accomplish. I mean, it's easy for a provider to go and try to hit all the NFL cities and try to go where it's easy to go in these communities that need it the most, to have companies like yours that, have to bore through rock and hit tough terrain and be able to connect these low density communities. I think it really makes a difference, especially whether it's in, Cañon City or anywhere in Montana, Wyoming, Colorado. So that's just absolutely amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about?
Thank you, Gary.
No, that's amazing. I'm sitting here thrilled every day as I see Live Oak Fiber getting closer to my house. I know that's the feeling that your customers must have as they see you guys inching their way towards their house. Can't wait to get that gigabit service for $60. Right. It's just life changing. Right. Can you kind of end with your thoughts on kind of lessons learned and just any advice you have to other operators that might want to be able to serve these very difficult to reach homes?
I think the setting up the relationships with the municipality, relationships with the utilities, that's a huge deal. Relationships with the locators, that's how you're going to succeed. You can't go into a community and be constantly battling. In fact, there's been situations where we've gone into a community and it's been an uphill battle, and there's a little bit of a little cronyism that happens in the smaller towns and whatnot, where people just really don't understand that you are utility, you are coming in, they have the other utilities there, they need to treat all utilities the same, and so you have to just really walk them through that, because in many of these towns where you build fiber or where we build fiber, they've got a part-time attorney that's really not even on staff, and so they've got to learn what they can and cannot ask. We've got to educate, and so taking time to build relationships. You can't go into a community and ask for an agreement and expect to start constructing 3 weeks later. You've got to put the time into it as a provider, and it's your responsibility, and that's the way we feel about it.
Well, Brian, congratulations and thank you for what you do. We just really appreciate. I know that your customers across Montana, Colorado, Wyoming greatly appreciate everything you do. And I look forward to getting back together next Wednesday. We're going to have Eric Frederick, the Chief Connectivity Officer for Michigan High-Speed Internet Office, which is code for the State Broadband Director for Michigan. He's going to be talking about closing the digital divide in Michigan, so you're not going to want to miss that. So look forward to seeing you guys next Wednesday. And thanks again, Brian. Really, congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks for having me.